So now my real thoughts on Party Poot. My first thought when I was seeing this is that it reminds me of the Aladdin TV series. On that series there was a race of barbarian Viking-style people, and these people were from the city of Odysseus. These people were a barbaric race with a love for combat, yachts, and cheese. The kind of people who didn't necessarily speak the best English and had a lot more brawn than they did brain. A people from an unusual culture that Aladdin and the other citizens of Agrabah never understood and had a difficult time getting along with. But over the course of Aladdin's TV series, the people of Odysseus and the people of Agrabah learned to get along and be friends, mostly because of Aladdin being a good diplomat and helping to civilize and improve the race, while at the same time learning to tolerate their eccentricities and their barbaric warrior ways. The Odysseans, like the Yaks, were never my favorite character on first impressions, but over the reappearance of many episodes they grew on me and became more interesting and were able to bring about unique episode ideas to Aladdin's series. And perhaps the Yaks will take the same turn as the Odysseans did in Aladdin and teach the same similar kinds of lessons. But if you want to know more about those episodes, you can take on your own time and go look up where episodes of the Aladdin series can be found and specifically look up the Odysseans' story arcs. Anyhow, back onto our pony discussion, the one that y'all came here for, right? When I saw the Yaks trashing the palace, my first thought was, oh, maybe bronies will enjoy this after all, because nobody really liked the palace anyhow, so who cares if it gets trashed? My other thought was, you guys just decorated this place. Now you gotta sing a whole new song about how you're repairing it after it got trashed. As I wanted to reprise the Make Twilight's Castle Feel Like a Home song at that particular point. Also interesting to know that Rainbow Dash still keeps some of her trophies in Twilight's Castle because one of them got smashed. And I think that vase was probably Rarity's touch. And I did see good continuity in the decor because there was a brief shot of the tree root chandelier this time as well. Also, there was a lot of Lesson Zero style behavior happening this time. Twilight's nervousness, Pinkie Pie's nervousness, lots of great facial expressions. Another thing to think about is the fact that a lot of Pinkie Pie's adventure happened off-screen, and we only got to hear about it from Pinkie recapping her story, and they showed still images. The whole Wonderbolts thing and the whole Beatles thing, as nice as that would be to see, it does bring up a couple of interesting thoughts. Like, one, maybe the writers wanted to write other stories, but they didn't have time to fit all those stories in to this season, so they had to compress it into this Pinkie Pie thing. And two, maybe Pinkie Pie just made all of that up. It seems a little unrealistic to start and rise in fame and end a band all in the course of an afternoon. Pinkie Pie's never been the most accurate storyteller. She couldn't even remember when she was done talking about her cutie mark that she wasn't talking about the founding of Equestria. Although she was surprisingly accurate about the existence of the rock farm, which I previously thought was a thing she was making up. So maybe this crazy band thing really did happen. Maybe it didn't. That's all up to your own personal interpretation until we hear otherwise. It was nice to see Cherry Jubilee and Cadence once again. We also got to see Pinkie Pie's intelligent side, and she was the only one who took the time and effort to read the entire book that Twilight gave every pony, and she committed what was in that book to heart and retained the memory of what she had read and was able to put it to use, becoming something of an expert of the culture, although not to the Yak's standards, but enough to impress any pony else who hadn't read the book. She also had the intelligence to keep all kinds of files and organizations on every pony and what they liked for their parties, so she can make references, and to have many other parties planned out way ahead of time in advance. The Yaks decide to go to war. You had one job, Twilight. The part where Pinkie sleds all the way from Yak-Yakistan all the way back to Ponyville was a bit of bad luck on her part. I was expecting the story to take us into Yak-Yakistan, show us around the village, and have Pinkie learn something interesting, like maybe the Yaks in Yak-Yakistan are never satisfied with their own home village and constantly find even the most authentic of things imperfect and are always fighting. Or maybe fighting is a cultural thing that they simply enjoy and don't consider much of a big deal. Maybe Pinkie would realize that she already has what it takes to please the Yaks and she just has to roll with it. But that didn't happen. We didn't even get inside the city. Pinkie Pie slid all the way back. When she was back all the way in Ponyville, I mean, there was a moment when I'm like, okay, you didn't slide too far away. You're only at the foot of the mountain. You can climb up again, right? But no, she slid all the way back to Ponyville. And when she was there, I'm like, well, maybe it'll turn out that the one thing the Yaks wanted was the sled. And we get the Citizen Kane ending with the Rosebud and everything. And the Yaks would have been longing for their childhood sled, and that would make them happy, and they'd be satisfied with this authentic Yak-Yakistan sled, and that would have solved the problems. But no, that wasn't the answer either. The answer was to not even try to impress them with your knowledge of their culture, and instead impress them by showing them something different. That ended up being the moral of the story. Although, think about it in real life and think about it in various other media, there's lots of examples of other foreigners coming to other countries and those other countries trying to impress the foreigners but getting all of the details wrong. It's like if you were an American and went to Japan and the place in Japan had all of the stereotypical American stuff, red, white, and blue all over the place, and Uncle Sam's and Statues of Liberties and cowboy hats and baseball stuff, and then you ate the hot dog and it tasted nothing like a hot dog should, and they got the hamburgers wrong. Or imagine a Japanese person coming to America and tasting their sushi bar and being disappointed in the limited varieties of foods and the limited quality of the foods, trying to recreate a Japanese house or a Japanese neighborhood and you put the beds on the floor, and you put the table on the floor, and you lay out the tea set, and you have cushions, and you have bamboo fountains, and you have random signs written in calligraphy that you can't read yourself, but you just trust they mean something important. And you put up paper lanterns, and you put in a pond with goldfish, and you put up a big old shrine gate, and you wear kimonos, and you say domo arigato and konnichiwa and things of that nature. But then you realize that everything you know about Japan you learned in anime, and you're just regurgitating anime cliches at the Japanese people, and suddenly they're no longer impressed because you're just doing an anime parody, and they're expecting serious representations of their culture. It could definitely be disappointing in that situation. I've even seen in episodes of Star Trek where the captain and the crew have had to welcome dignitaries, and they've had to replicate the dignitaries' cultures and clothing and food and customs, and they had to get all of the little details right to please the dignitaries, and then they had to struggle with the pronunciation of the words and the greetings, the customs, all of the important things that they were supposed to observe to impress these other cultures. There's a lot of culture shock in Star Trek, just like there is with the yaks and the ponies. A couple of examples come to mind, like in Star Trek 6 when they're having their dinner with the Klingons. The only thing that they have in common at the dinner is the Romulan ale and the quoting of Shakespeare. This is definitely a problem that's arisen before, both in mainstream pop culture as well as in real-world cultural differences. There's always somebody that you have to meet, whether they're from Orc or Mypos or wherever else you happen to be from in the entire universe, that you have to quickly learn what their culture is and adapt and try to please them. But since you're doing this for your first time, you can't always please these people, and you can't always represent their cultures as accurately as you'd like. I was also disappointed that with Pinkie Pie wandering Equestria trying to learn more about Yakistan, that she didn't have her travels cross paths at any point with Cheese Sandwich. He didn't have to have a speaking line, but I'm surprised he wasn't even verbally mentioned. The moral that I got out of this is, 1, be satisfied when others try to please you and don't look for perfection. Know that when you're trying to please other cultures, you do not know as much as the natives do about how to represent their culture, and it's not going to be perfect. Therefore, neither you nor they should expect perfection. Be satisfied with the fact that others worked hard to do something, rather than picking it apart and pointing out all of their flaws. They did their best job. Be happy that they tried to begin with. Anyhow, those are all of my thoughts on this episode for now.